Yes, it's that time again. It's Arawak Chat with Professor Hard Stepper. And yes, this is Arawak Chat, episode 27, Bottoms Up, part 1. Let me say that again. This is Arawak Chat, episode 27, Bottoms Up, part 1. But before we get into that, you know how we do. And by the orders of Professor Hot Stepper, it's a triple chili pepper. Listen.
Been another sad summer song. I've been thinking about you, girl, all night long. Been another sad tear on my pillow. Been another memory to turn me all on, girl. Been thinking about you, girl, all night long. Sad, sweet dreamer, it's just one of those things you put down through experience. Sad, sweet dreamer, it's just one of those things you put down through experience. Been another long night of miss you, girl. Been another story from those endless magazines. I can't help thinking about you, girl, all night long. Sweet dreamer, it's just one of those things you put down through experience. Sad, sweet dreamer, it's just one of those things you put down through experience. Was so happy when I found you, but I was hard to know that you would leave me walking down the road. In another good love story, in another man who thought that he was all so strong. I've been thinking about you, girl, all night long. So sad, sweet dreamer, it's just one of those things you put down through experience. Things you put down through experience.
Once again, what a tune. Classic. The sounds of Mr. Dennis Walks. Track entitled, or should I say his solo smash hit entitled Sad Sweet Dreamer. In fact, let me just correct myself. That's Dennis Walks and the Moody's All-Stars. Track entitled Sad Sweet Dreamer, circa 1974, and that comes courtesy of Mood Disc Records, and then was subsequently re-released on the compilation album entitled Various Reggae Nostalgia Golden Hits, circa 1995. And once again, that comes courtesy of Mood Disc Records International and is available at all good music retailers and stockists. Make sure you go cop it.
System ready to receive input.
Left channel, right channel, left channel, right channel. In stereo sound. In stereo sound. In stereo sound. In stereo sound.
Good gamblers. Good gamblers.
I can make it without you. Don't know what I'm gonna do without you.
Lord have mercy.
Close to me.
One more time. What a tune.
I can make it without you. Don't know what I'm gonna do without you. Close to me, darling, you get close to me. You found the very heart in me and drive away my misery. You've got a way of solving all my problems when you get close to me.
What a tune!
True to me, baby, please be true to me. 'Cause girl, it seems you got the key to open up the world for me. You got a way of solving all my problems.
Yes.
When you get close to me.
If you want to hear that tune again, somebody say
Now Fire Mama said pull up and I will acquiesce to her request. But you know what? Something special's in the air today. I don't know what it quite is. Oh, I know what it is. The sun is shining. Amen.
I can make it without you. Don't know what I'm gonna do without you. Close to me, darling, you get close to me. You found the very heart in me and drive away my misery. You've got a way of solving all my problems when you get close to me. True to me, baby, please be true to me. 'Cause girl, it seems you got the key to open up the world for me. You got a way of solving all close to me. 'Cause girl, I know you got the key to open up a road for me. You got a way of solving all my problems when you get close to me.
Harder.
You got a way of ending all my troubles when you get close to me. You got a way of solving all my...
What a tune. Memories are licking through my head right now. Sounds of DJ Scotty, his solo smash hit entitled Close to Me, circa 1988-89, roughly around that time there. And that comes courtesy of Penthouse Records and Jermaine Records, and then was subsequently re-released on the compilation album entitled Penthouse Flashback Series 80s, Volume 6, circa 1988-89, around that time, and then was subsequently re-released on his album of circa 1993 entitled Dance Hall Fire, and that comes courtesy of Overheat Records and is available at all good music retailers and stockists. Make sure you go cop it.
Is that the way to love someone? Won't you tell me, is that the way?
Could you possibly rewind and come again?
Oh yeah, we go in there again. One more time from the TOP Energies up today. Yeah, man.
Is that the way to love someone? Won't you tell me, is that the way to love someone? Yes. 'Cause when you meet for the first time, you feel so wonderful, and your heart skips a beat now and then when you see her over and over, see her. You know, that's how I met my girl. She was standing there, looking so wonderful, So won't you tell me, is that the way to love someone? Oh yeah. Is that the way to love someone? Oh yes, yeah. To love someone. To love someone. To love If she does you wrong, think about it then to fight amongst yourselves. And if he does you wrong, think about tomorrow when he's gone. So is that the way to love someone. To love someone. To love someone like you. Like you.
Wow. Smashing tune. Once again, the sounds of Mr. Paul Dawkins. His solo smash hit entitled To Love Someone. Circa, you're probably talking like 1978, 1979. It's funny that 79 is my year I was born. But anyway, and that comes courtesy of Arawak Records, circa 1978-79, and then was subsequently re-released on the compilation album entitled The Best of Original British Lovers Rock Volume 1. Circa 2007, and that comes courtesy of Jetstar Records and is available at all good music retailers and stockists. Make sure you go cop it. And without further ado, Professor Hot Stepper, over to you.
Yeah, shout out to everybody that's out in the chat today right now. Shout out to the Droid for giving us such a good intro to start our show today, and shout out to everybody on Instagram. Peace, hope everybody's well, and yeah, it feels good to be here again.
For real, Professor, just at my post. Why the vibes are right today.
Yeah, it's a great day today. Actually, it's been very nice outside since yesterday, and I had a look on the forecast. It looks like it's going to be getting better as well for next week as well. So it looks like we're actually getting our spring on the way.
Yeah, that's good, Professor, because then you know what precedes spring, summer.
Yeah.
Now for us Mesoamericans here in the UK, we love it, but for some others, well, they'll be barling one day. But anyway,
let's see. So in the chat, we have the original Copper Empress Holber. Shout out to you. Happy birthday. Much respect.
Yes, Auntie Holbert. Happy Solar Strong. Salute.
Yeah, I forgot that Holbert was born in March, man. You're a week before me. That's crazy. But shout out to you. Shout out to Copper Fox. Peace to you.
Fire Mama. Salute.
Next in we had Empress Freedom Feather. Peace to you.
Big ups. Salute.
Shout out to Joe.
Big ups. Salute.
And shout out to Arawak. Peace. I see you in there as well.
Big ups. Salute.
Next up we got Cape. Shout out to Stardust. Peace to you.
Stardust. Salute.
Who else? Shout out to DB Par. Peace to you.
Big ups. Salute.
Lady Legs. Shout out to you.
Big ups. Salute.
We've got Amazon as well. Shout out to you.
Big ups. Salute.
Peace to Solomine.
Big ups. Salute.
And I think that's everyone for the time being. I think that's everyone. So yeah. Wow, episode 27. So what we're covering today, we're covering the topic of alcohol in the Americas. This was another topic I wanted to do because, yeah, a lot of times, you know, you read in historical texts and literature about how alcohol was introduced to the Americas, you know, and that who they referred to as Europeans brought alcohol over, and then they used it as a means first for, you know, recreational use amongst themselves. Then they used it as a weapon, you know.
Yep.
They used it for trade. That was the second step. Then they used it as a weapon to disenfranchise the people they were trading with. But there is another side to that as well. And that's what we're going to be covering in episode 27. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. And we're going to kick it off right about now. So let me go to...
Professor, it sounds like you've been digging in the crates. You've been dug out some gems, isn't it?
All right, I think that's gone through. So we're going to start here to introduce this to you guys. This is from Rehab for Addiction. And this is Alcoholism and Native Americans Knowing the Facts. Okay. So it's well known that Native Americans living across North America have struggled with alcohol addiction. These problems continue to this day, and it is said that around 12% of deaths amongst Native Americans can be attributed either directly or indirectly to alcoholism. This fact applies to Native Americans living in America, Canada, and Alaska. Native Americans living in Alaska are least likely to die as a direct or indirect result of their alcohol intake. The risks of developing alcoholism amongst Native Americans varies according to age, gender, and tribe. Older Native American women are least likely to become afflicted by alcoholism. In fact, Native American women are less likely to abuse alcohol compared to the national average across all people living in North America. The male population are the highest at-risk group when it comes to alcohol-related deaths. One study analyzed death certificates over a 4-year period. This analysis revealed that Native Americans are 4 times more likely to die from alcohol-related illnesses or accidents compared to the general population across North America. This included road accidents caused by alcohol consumption and alcohol-inflicted illnesses such as liver disease. Native Americans are also more likely to experience non-fatal injuries and ailments as a result of their alcohol consumption. This includes muscle strains, sprains, visual and hearing problems, head injuries, bladder and kidney problems, and poor dental health. So Native Americans are also more at risk of being born with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, known as FAS, compared to the general population. Native American babies are 7 times more at risk of developing FAS compared to the national average. Native Americans are also much more at risk of abusing alcohol during their youth compared to the general population. Studies show around 80% of Native Americans use alcohol during their youth. It's believed mental health issues such as poor self-esteem is the main cause of alcohol abuse amongst younger Native Americans. So a note before I go any further, everything that I've just read so far, they are putting this within the context of so-called Native American people, you know, the ones that you are most likely to see on a reservation. So they're telling you that these people are the ones that have the highest problems faced with alcoholism on the reservations that they occupy. But then again, remember, they're not also taking into account Indians off the reservation. If you've been following enough platforms and you've been reading enough material, you know, watching enough videos, then you'll know that an Indian off the reservation was allowed to be classed as anything other than an Indian. So this would have been Negro, this would have been colored, and this would later transpire to something like Black or African something, you know. And then you need to look where these people live today, you know, these wards who are uncategorized. And then you would see that they also face alcoholism problems as well, you know. They would be made to live in the most deprived of areas where alcohol is readily available for cheap prices. Yeah, so this would also be a problem. So we've got alcohol consumption in pre-colonial times. So before Europeans reached North America, it's believed alcohol production was limited to the southwestern region of the United States. So during this period, Native Americans predominantly produced alcohol for ceremonial purposes. Most of these beverages contained low amounts of alcohol, between 8 to 14%. So the Apache, Maricopa, and Pagogo tribes produce wine from the Segura cactus. In Texas, the Calhilitucan tribe created alcoholic beverages by mixing agave plants with laurel. In the eastern region of the United States, the Cherokee tribe produced alcoholic beverages by combining berries and fruits. So Native Americans living in North America were unable to produce stronger alcohol concentrations during this period simply because advanced distillation techniques had not yet been discovered. This contrasted with Mexican Native Americans who were able to distill alcohol at over 40% from pineapple, honey, or wild plum. So now we get to alcohol consumption in post-colonial times. So Europeans had developed advanced distilling techniques during the centuries prior to colonization of North America. These alcohol distilling techniques were developed over a long period of time, thus giving European populations the ability to develop legal, moral, and social guidelines to moderate their use of this powerful drug. When Europeans colonized North America, vast quantities of strong alcoholic beverages became available to Native Americans without giving them an opportunity to develop social and moral guidelines to moderate their use. Europeans utilized potent spirits and wines as a means of trading with Native Americans. Distilled spirits were exchanged for animal skins and other precious resources. This created much demand for potent alcoholic beverages amongst Native American tribes. Europeans discovered they could strengthen their hand in trade deals by intoxicating Native Americans with alcohol during negotiations. Europeans also drank during negotiations, but these people had, unlike their Native American counterparts, built up a tolerance to these potent spirits and wines. This trend continued as the land was colonized from east to west. Miners, trappers, and lumbermen all utilized alcohol as a means of weakening Native Americans' ability to resist efforts to either steal or profit from their lands. It's thus arguable that these historical factors could be a chief cause of the present-day problems Native Americans experience with alcohol abuse. When Europeans initially introduced potent forms of alcohol to Native Americans, it's believed that the Native Americans viewed excessive drunkenness as a degradation to free men. Most Native Americans only drank during trading negotiations or social events where Europeans were present. It is believed drinking patterns amongst Native Americans grew exponentially over the following centuries of colonization. Since 1975, alcohol consumption has remained constant among the Native American population. So the influence of Central American Indians. Alcohol distilling techniques amongst Native Americans originated in Central America. Knowledge of these techniques reached North America via Mexico. Alcohol was distilled from wild plants by Native Americans before European contact. However, alcohol was utilized for spiritual rituals and not for drunkenness. The idea of using alcohol for excessive drunkenness was unarguably a European invention.
Facts.
Now we get to dispelling the firewater myth. The firewater myth states that Native Americans' so-called inability to handle alcohol is due to their inferiority as a race. The firewater myth is a set of beliefs that Native Americans have a natural and genetic craving for alcohol, and they are more likely to become belligerent when under alcohol's influence because of this. This myth shifts culpability for alcoholism amongst Native Americans away from colonization. In other words, this myth shifts blame away from white America's ancestors and onto Native Americans themselves. This is clearly a form of victim blaming.
Mm-hmm.
Studies have proven Native Americans are not genetically more susceptible to alcohol abuse, thus dispelling the beliefs that underpin the firewater myth. And now we get to the causes of alcohol abuse amongst Native Americans. Now that we've dispelled the firewater myth, we shall now discuss factors that are likely to contribute towards the risk of alcohol abuse amongst Native Americans. The greater risk of developing alcoholism amongst Native American peoples is probably due to the multi-generational experience of trauma. The link between addiction and trauma is well established. Simply put, the more trauma you experience, the greater your risk of developing an addiction. Native Americans experience trauma for a variety of reasons. For instance, Native Americans are more at risk of having their families split apart by the state compared to the general population. This is unquestionably a traumatic experience for families concerned. Thousands of older Native Americans were forcibly removed from their families during their youth when the governments of North America pursued a policy akin to cultural genocide. Decades ago, children of Native Americans were forced into boarding schools where they were not permitted to use their own language or even their own names. Also, around a quarter of Native Americans live below the poverty line. The rate of unemployment is double for Native Americans compared to the general population. Native Americans clearly must live with elevated levels of stress that are well above average. Stress hormones are known to suppress the immune system and mean Native Americans are much more at risk of developing chronic illnesses such as diabetes, liver disease, and obesity. Suicide rates are also high amongst Native Americans. And now we get to death and disease caused by alcohol abuse. So Native Americans are more at risk of becoming victims of alcoholism and alcohol-related deaths compared to the general population by a factor of 5.6. Native Americans are 3.9 times more at risk of developing chronic liver disease and cirrhosis due to alcohol consumption compared to the general population. Alcohol was a factor for 69% of suicides amongst Native Americans. In 1980, this rate was 7.1 times higher. Native American males aged between 45 and 64 are particularly at risk of alcohol-related mortality. So we have domestic abuse. So Native Americans are also more at risk of falling victim to domestic violence compared to the general population. This study found that 39% of Native women reported that they were victims of intimate partner violence, a rate higher than any other race or ethnicity surveyed. Domestic violence has a devastating impact on families, individuals, and communities. A major risk factor of domestic violence is substance abuse, including alcoholism. And then we have fetal alcohol syndrome, known as FAS. Native American babies are at a higher risk of developing fetal alcohol syndrome, FAS, compared to the general population in North America. Between 1981 to 1911, the risk of developing FAS was 31 babies per 10,000 amongst Native Americans, compared to just 2.1 per 10,000 amongst the overall US population. In fact, the prevalence of FAS amongst Native Americans is greater than anywhere else throughout the entire world. Contributing factors include high poverty levels and a lack of health care. Average spending on healthcare amongst Native Americans is just $2,782 compared to an average of $11,762 for those on Medicare. And then we get to efforts to solve these problems. There have been a number of initiatives set up to assist Native Americans who may be negatively impacted by the issues we raise in this article. Below, we outline a number of these initiatives. The first is the Indian Health Services. The Indian Health Service set up the Alcohol and Substance Abuse Program, ASAP. The ASAP assists both Alaska Natives and American Indians who are suffering from substance misuse. The ASAP is administered in tribal communities. Both inpatient and outpatient addiction treatment is made available for those who are covered under the Indian Health Service. 2. Tribal Action Plan, TAP. The TAP coordinates resources and funding required to help mitigate levels of alcohol and substance abuse among the Native American population. So in conclusion, if you are affected by any of these issues above, know that seeking out help is unarguably the best move you can make. Suffering alone will only serve to perpetuate your own or your loved one's problems with alcohol. And then they list the following services below. So naturally, again, what I was just reading to you, they're talking within the context of, you know, your, how do I put it, your commercial Native American, for lack of words.
Yep.
Yeah. So this came from, once again, Rehab for Addiction. So this is what we're reading from.
I like how you put that one, Professor, the commercial Native Americans.
Yeah.
That's funny. But you know what? To family out there listening, you know them as, and I'm gonna quote Rainstorm, Chief Fate Feathers. Shout out to Rainstorm for that one there. I like that.
So next up, this comes from Live Science, and this article is Beer Brewed Long Ago by Native Americans. This was published December 28th, 2007. So, ancient Pueblo Indians brewed their own brand of corn beer, a new study suggests, contradicting claims that the group remained dry until their first meeting with the Europeans. Archaeologists recently found that 800-year-old post-herds belonging to the pueblos of the American Southwest contain bits of fermented residue typical in beer production. Before the discovery, historians thought a pocket of pueblos in New Mexico did not have alcohol at all, despite being surrounded by other beer-making tribes, until the Spanish arrived with grapes and wine in the 16th century. The tests were done using a highly sensitive set of scanning technologies at Sandia National Laboratories, a US government facility that usually employs the gadgetry for national defense. Pueblo, not a desert island 1,000 years ago, traditional Native American farming villages were already scattered across parts of New Mexico, Arizona, and northern Mexico, divided among several tribes including the Apache, Pueblo, Navajo, and the Tarahumara. Many of the tribes living in Mexico and some in Arizona are known to have produced a weak beer called Tiswin, made by fermenting kernels of corn, but no evidence has ever been found that the same thing happened in New Mexico. There's been an artificial construct among archaeologists working in New Mexico that no one had alcohol here until the Spanish brought grapes and wine. That's so counterintuitive. It doesn't make sense to me as a social scientist that New Mexico would have been an island in pre-Columbian times, said Glenna Dean, an archaeologist who approached Sandia Laboratories for help with her research, which she conducts through her small business, Archaeobotanical Services. Tests found 800-year-old beer dregs to test her thinking. Dean brought pots herds belonging to ancient New Mexican pueblos, pots from modern Tarahumaran groups where Tiswin is still brewed, and pots in which Dean herself concocted the brew to Sandia Laboratories for comparison. Sandia scientists analyzed the samples using gas chromatography and mass spectrometry, technologies that can identify the presence of organic compounds and are used in national security to detect chemical, biological, and other hazardous agents. Sorry, one moment, guys. I just got to take a call.
And the professor will be back momentarily. Just hold tight.
funky to me. Sounds kind of funky to me. Sounds kind of funky to me. Sounds kind of funky to me.
I'm doing my beat in a special way. Soundtrack to the revolution, man. Soundtrack to the revolution, man. Soundtrack. The soundtrack. 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 Soundtrack to the revolution, man. Time to step up. Time to step up.
Apologies about that. Yeah, Professor always in overtime. Right. Shout out to the chat. Apologies once again. Shout out to Mr. Darkfly, brother. What's good?
Big ups. Salute.
Shout out to Black Indian Immigrated.
Big ups. Salute.
And shout out to Joel.
Big ups. Salute.
All right. So yeah. And shout out to the M.
Big ups. Salute.
All right. So we're going to get back into our article. All right. Let me get the screen share.
Professor, when we go to a music break, there's some wrenches you need to give out. Just give you a heads up.
Yep.
You're good, Professor.
Okay. Let's see. Where was I up to? Oh, yeah. So comment. No. Oh, I know where I was. So Sandia scientists analyzed the samples using gas chromatography and mass spectrometry, technologies that can identify the presence of organic compounds and are used in national security to detect chemical, biological, and other hazardous agents. Common microscopic leftovers of alcoholic compounds were found across all three, said Sandia researcher Ted Borick, indicating that the ancient pots were likely used for the same purpose, fermentation, as the modern ones. The results were presented by Borick in a talk at a recent Materials Research Society meeting in Boston. They appear to be consistencies across the modern home brew and Tarahumaran pots, Borick said, who cautioned that they have not found that smoking gun that definitely provides evidence of intentional fermentation. It's always possible that corn fermented in a pot without the intent of the owner. More research will be conducted on the pots to rule out accidental fermentation. Given the success of Dean's experiment, mass spectrometry and gas chromatography are expected to be sought out for more archaeological studies at Sandia Laboratories, the scientist said. And that's the end of the article there. So once again, that was from Live Science, and this was to do with beer brewed long ago by Native Americans. Go to the next tab. All right, so this one comes from Today I Found Out. And our article for here, Native Americans were not introduced to alcohol by Europeans. And this is November 18, 2013. So it is a sad truth that Native Americans suffer from alcoholism at rates far higher than those of other ethnic groups. While many causes likely contribute to this problem, some of these most commonly espoused, including lack of prior exposure to alcohol and genetic predisposition, are oft-repeated misconceptions. In fact, well before Europeans began to colonize the Americas, Native Americans were putting on a nice polite buzz. The myth that Europeans introduced Native Americans to alcohol. People have been making alcohol since the dawn of civilization. In the Levant, archaeologists have found evidence that brewing of beer was an important aspect of feasting and society in the late Epipaleolithic era, which is 12,000 to 9,500 BC. As the Natufians possessed only stone tools and basin technology, clearly it doesn't take much to make a simple brew. This was certainly the case in North America, where a number of Native American peoples had been making alcoholic beverages using various simple methods since long before first contact. In Mexico, some believe Native Americans used a corn precursor to make a brewed drink. They note the ancestral grass of modern maize, teosinte, was well suited for making beer, but was much less so for making corn flour. In addition, it is well established that Mexican Native Americans prepared over 40 different alcoholic beverages from a variety of plant substances such as honey, palm sap, wild plum, and pineapple. In the southwestern US, the Papago, Piman, Apache, and Maricopa all used the saguaro cactus to produce a wine, sometimes called Harena a Pitaya. Similarly, the Apache fermented corn to make tiswin, also called tulpi and tulape, and the yucca plant to make a different alcoholic beverage. The Coahuiltecan in Texas combined mountain laurel and the agave plant to create an alcoholic drink, and the Pueblos and Zulis were believed to have made fermented beverages from aloe, maguey, corn, prickly pear, pitaya, and even grapes. To the east, the Creek of Georgia and Cherokee of the Carolinas used berries and other fruits to make alcoholic beverages, and in the northeast there is some evidence that the Huron made a mild beer made from corn. In addition, despite the fact that they had little to no agriculture, both the Aleuts and Inuit of Alaska were believed to have made alcoholic drinks from fermented berries. It should be noted, however, that most of these beverages were relatively weak, presumably no stronger than wine, which typically runs from 8 to 14%. Whiskey, on the other hand, is usually 60%, and grain alcohol, e.g. moonshine, is often 95%. As a result, when Europeans introduced these stronger drinks, Native Americans were in for a shock. Now we come to the drunken Indian myth. So contrary to popular misconceptions, there is no evidence to support theories that Indians were predisposed to alcoholism. Rather, they appear to be the victims of a tragic combination of circumstances. Shortly after first contact, trade was established. In exchange for the furs and skins so prized by Europeans, colonists and traders provided large quantities of strong liquor and wine. With little or no experience consuming strong alcohol, Native American communities were ill-prepared to manage their populace's exposure to so much of it. One expert noted, when large amounts of distilled spirits and wine were made available to American Indians, the tribes had little time to develop social, legal, or moral guidelines to regulate alcohol use. Sadly, the hard-drinking, rowdy colonists provided early Native Americans with the worst role models possible. Binge drinking, violent outbursts, and extreme intoxication were common. This influence had a devastating effect on Native American communities. As one commentator opened, for a culture that was naive to alcohol use, this model of alcohol consumption established a behavioral pattern of drinking that reinforced unhealthy quantities from the onset. It is probable to conclude that this left our ancestors unable to re-establish cultural and societal standards with relation to the regulation of alcohol use. So now we get to the genetic myth. Another common misconception is that Native Americans lack the enzymes necessary to properly metabolize alcohol and therefore have no genetic defense to protect them from becoming alcoholics. Reminiscent of the devastating effect European diseases had on native populations at first contact due to lack of immunity, this explanation has a certain appeal, but it is completely false. According to the US Department of Health and Human Services, the DHS, despite the fact that more Native American people die of alcohol-related causes than do any other ethnic group in the United States, research shows that there is no difference in the rates of alcohol metabolism and enzyme patterns between Native Americans and whites. This means that sadly, the higher rate of alcoholism among Native Americans is due to other factors. Some possible causes include the loss of culture and autonomy, which have included being forced onto reservations and a variety of other indignities, great and small. One example was the 20th century practice of forcing children to attend special boarding schools, often hundreds of miles away from home. In addition to the emotional and psychological damage caused by forced separation, this program prevented parents from having the opportunity to raise their children in a way that was culturally congruent. And now we have alcohol in Native American communities today. Alcoholism is a disease that disproportionately affects Native Americans. The National Institute of Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism reports that over 12% of Native Americans are heavy drinkers, the highest among all ethnic groups. And the Centers for Disease Control, CDC, notes that Native Americans have the highest prevalence of binge drinking. The chronic alcohol use has devastated many Native American communities. Alcohol has been identified as the culprit in 65% of car crashes on reservations and a whopping 48% of all vehicle-related deaths among the population. Alcohol is also blamed for numerous homicides and suicides, as well as injuries and assaults from alcohol-fueled domestic violence. It is reported that 1 in 3 Native American women will suffer from domestic or sexual violence in their lifetime. This rate is more than twice the national average. Tragically, chronic liver disease and cirrhosis was the 5th leading cause of death among the Native American population in 2009. Okay. And again, this was from Today I Found Out. And this was Native Americans were not introduced to alcohol by Europeans. So we're going to look at a few books now where we can go into maybe a little bit more depth about this. So start with the first book that you can see in front of you is Social History of the Races of Mankind, Third Division. And this is by A. Featherman. So there's 2 parts of this book I'm going to go over. So we're going to go to the first one now.
You good, Professor? Or is it stuck?
Yeah, it's just a bit slow today. There we go. Okay. So just for context, we're going to be reading about the Urabas. So this is about a group of people called the Urabas. So the Urabas are distinguished for their personal cleanliness. They bathe at least twice a day at sunrise and at sunset. Order and neatness prevail in the interior of their houses, and their domestic arrangements are indications of industrious habits and social contentment. The Yorubas subsist on a mixed diet. The food of the agricultural tribes consists principally of maize, plantains, bananas, cacao, cocoa nuts with red peppers as seasoning, but game and fish form an important part of their food supplies. But bananas are mostly pulled in a green state and are then buried in the ground to ripen. Bread is made from the farina of the cassava root as well as from maize meal. Some tribes gather the wild roots and a fruit called pixba, resembling the date, which is eaten toasted and furnishes a nourishing article of substance. Turtle is a staple article of food among the coast tribes. The flesh of monkeys, pecaries, iguanas, as well as young alligators and their eggs supply favorable dishes. Fish are eaten roasted, wrapped in banana leaves. Among the valiants, meat is roasted upon a frame made of cane with a fire kindled underneath, and it is only considered fully done after it has been partially smoked. The flesh of wild animals as well as fish is frequently stewed with roots or green plantains, to which a great quantity of red pepper is added as seasoning. They prepare several kinds of intoxicating drinks from maize, pineapples, and bananas. The maize beer, chica, is brewed from the malted grain, which is bruised and left to ferment with a quantity of water, and some chewed grains is added to accelerate the fermenting process. Or the sprouted grain is boiled in water, and on cooling, a pleasant drink is produced, which, as it acidifies, cannot be kept for more than 4 or 5 days. They also indulge largely in drinking palm wine, which is obtained by tapping a species of palm near the top of the tree. Formerly, when strangers were invited to a repast, the cooked food was served on a kind of table made of twigs ingeniously wrought and covered with plantain leaves. 2 earthen pots, one filled with salt and the other with red pepper, were placed in the center, and the dishes were brought in the earthenware vessels. Each guest had a calabash standing by his side filled with the native liquor, of which he partook whenever he felt inclined to do so. He helped himself with his fingers, which he dipped in a vessel of water placed at his disposal after every mouthful which he had swallowed. So there you see that, let me just get a reminder of who they were. The Yorubas, I think it was. Yeah, the Yorubas. So the Yorubas, they had an alcoholic beverage. They had a native alcoholic beverage already in pre-colonial times. You just saw there, they had a maize beer, and they also had a palm wine as well. So these were drinks that they already had of an alcoholic nature, and these were there before they made contact with any colonial forces.
Check.
Now, to reiterate this, let's go to another section of the book. I've remembered the right page. I'm sure this is the next one. Okay. So I just want to check something real quick. Yeah, this is the right place. Okay. So the people we're going to talk about now are called the Warus. Okay. So the Warus find shelter in simple huts or rather open sheds constructed of strong posts connected by transverse poles and covered with thatch of palm leaves. Let's just make that a little bigger. Yeah. Several families generally occupy one of the same hut, living promiscuously together, as there are no partitions in the interior. The fireplace, which is in the center of the floor, is simply marked by a number of stones arranged in circular form. The furniture consists of hammocks, which are fastened to the side posts, a few cooking pots, hunting weapons, and fishing implements. The interior is extremely filthy and unsightly. The settlements or villages which are inhabited by members of the same clan generally contain no more than 6 or 10 huts, which are scattered over a considerable space of ground. When during the periodical rains, the country becomes inundated, the warriors erect their huts on a platform resting on tree trunks of which the branches have been lopped off. And some of the warriors who permanently occupy the swampy coastlands built their huts on piles above high water mark. Warriors are but scantily dressed. The main article of their costume is the breechcloth, which is nothing but a long strip of cotton stuff that passes between the thighs, is tied round the loins with a cord, with the ends hanging down before and behind. They are fond of ornamentation. They practice tattooing and mark various parts of their body with indelible lines. They perforate their ears and the septum of their noses, from which various trinkets are suspended. The women are loaded with strings of beads, which hang around their neck. Both sexes wear their hair long, which falls loosely down their back. The food of the warriors is confined to the game they kill in their hunting expeditions and to fish which they take in the rivers. But in time of scarcity, they are not fastidious in their choice of food. They eat indiscriminately the flesh of apes, alligators, rats, and frogs, and when severely pinched by hunger, they even devour worms, caterpillars, larvae, and bugs. They preserve their surplus meat by drying it over the fire on a low frame of posts, covered with transverse sticks, and after having been exposed to the heat and smoke for 24 hours, it can be kept for 5 or 6 days. Venison is cooked in the blood and is strongly seasoned with red pepper. They eat but little at a time. They take their morning meal at 6 and 10 o'clock, dine at noon, take a lunch at 3, and sup at sundown. Women eat but rarely in company with the men, and this privilege is never granted to them when strangers are present. In fair weather, the wife serves her husband's meal in front of the hut. She places the dishes of woven palm leaves containing the cassava bread on the ground, and by the side of these stands the smoking pot filled with savoury meat. While squatting on his haunches, each man dips his bread in the broth and helps himself with his fingers. Everyone withdraws as soon as his hunger is satisfied without the least ceremony. When the men have completed their request, the women and children have then the privilege of eating what has been left unconsumed, but they generally reserve for themselves some extra dishes, of which they partake as soon as the men have absented themselves from the hut. The warriors were well acquainted with the process of preparing intoxicating drinks long before they came in contact with the white race. They brew pewari, or cassava beer, by subjecting brown baked cassava bread to fermentation, and they make kasiri from flexusa. When tapped, furnishes a vinous sap, which after fermentation acquires intoxicating properties. This tree is of the greatest utility to the Orinoco warriors. The pith supplies them with a kind of sago, which serves them as bread when the manioc crop proves to be a failure. The cone-like fruit, after having been macerated in water for a few days, is considered a delicacy. The fan-shaped leaves furnish the thatch for their huts. The leaf fibers are transformed into ropes and hammocks, and from the sharp edge of the leaf stems, sandals are made. The dead trunk of this invaluable palm serves as receptacle for the eggs of a large bug, which, when developed into larvae, are devoured by the warriors as the most luscious and savory food. So again, you have a different group. They had their own alcohol before making contact with anyone in a colonial capacity. And once again, this came from fermented cassava. So again, the book was a social history of the races of mankind. So the next book we're going to look at now is the Handbook of British Guyana. So I'm going to go to the page for that. One moment. So I'm just going to refresh the page. Oh, shout out to Cherokee Tolu. What's good?
Tolu, big ups, salute.
Shout out to Seeker. Peace to you.
Big ups, salute.
And shout out to Big Dog Philly OG.
Big ups. Salute.
All right, let's try and bring that back. One moment.
You good, Professor?
Yeah. Hang on.
Professor will be back with us momentarily. Please hold tight.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have the honey drippers in the house tonight, and they just got back from Washington, D.C. I think they got something they want to say.
And yes, ladies and gentlemen, Professor is experiencing some technical difficulties. So just bear with us in the meantime. Take this moment to grab yourself some refreshments of the liquid kind. And of course, if it's of the liquid kind, please drink responsibly. Or if it's of the other kind, please infuse safely, okay? This is Arawak Chat, episode 27, Bottoms Up.
If you are offended by it's the soundtrack to the revolution, man. Time to step up to the plate.
When I find the right page, I'll come back to that book at another time, but I'll move on to the next one. Got my page is mixed up on that one, so apologies for that. Let's go to this book now. So this book is called Shall We Drink? A Physician's Study of the Alcohol Question. So I'm going to move on to this one now because I've got the right part up for this. So speaking further of the use of intoxicating drinks, Pliny says the natives who inhabit the west of Europe have a liquor by which they intoxicate themselves made from corn and water. The manner of making this liquid is somewhat different in Gaul, Spain, and other countries, and is called by different names, and its nature and properties are everywhere the same. The people in Spain particularly brew this liquor so well that it will keep good a long time. So exquisite is the cunning of mankind in gratifying their vicious appetites that they thus invent a method to make water itself produce intoxication. The Romans are supposed to have introduced the art of malting into Britain. It is evident from Virgil that barley was known to the Romans, for he speaks of it in the plural form hordia. Pliny tells of the hoderi gladiators, a kind of fencer whose chief food was barley. The ordinary beverages of a soldier under Caesar was vinegar and beer. The former was very strong and was drunk, diluted with water when on the march. Beer being so easily produced with an agricultural people with whom corn was plenty, and so suitable to the climate, it soon became a natural beverage. Before this time, ordinary drinks of the ancient Britons were water, milk, and mead. The latter was a fermented drink made from honey. After the Romans were driven out from Britain, the Saxons invaded the island, subdued its people, and from them learned the art of brewing. Various other savage peoples have made and are making beverages by malting different kinds of grain or by fermenting natural fluids, which contain sugar. Thus, the Kaffir races of South Africa have from remote ages made and are still making a beer by malting the seed of a variety of millet, also known as sorghum vulgar. Natives of Nubia, Abyssinia, and other parts of Africa also make an intoxicating drink by treating the seeds of the poa, a kind of grass. Beverages have also been made from the juice of the palm, cactus, the sap of the maple, spruce, fir, birch, and ash, the juice of the aloe, and many other fluids. Indeed, there seems to be scarcely any substance yielding a juice containing sugar that has not been made to produce an alcoholic beverage by some primitive people to whom it was easily accessible. Let's see. In Central America and Peru, atol and chica were made by malting maize flour, and in Mexico, pulque was made from the agave and also from the cocoa bean. Another drink called chocolatao was made from the ripe cocoa bean, which was first ground into a fine flour or meal. Next, this drink was also fermented, we have reason to believe, for we read that the jugs of chocolatao with the froth still on them were never lacking when Montezuma made a meal. The chica of the Peruvians, which may also have been used by the Mexicans, was made like beer from malted Indian corn. Narcotic herbs were sometimes added to it, after which it was called sorra, and the drinking of it was forbidden to many classes, especially the nobles and warriors. Drunkenness among the peoples of the old American empires was widespread. Some Spanish writers attribute their early downfall to this cause. Peru especially. The Peruvians are said to have made themselves drunk with chica before entering battle with their enemies, but that instead of bringing victory brought demoralization. The early missionaries saw the evils wrought by chica in Peru and pulque in Mexico and Yucatan and did what was possible to restrict their use. Finally, the use of pulque at the festivals of the gods was prohibited by law. The Peruvians celebrated a festival of the summer solstice, during which even natives of low birth were permitted to get drunk on this maize beer, and the days during which the festival lasted seem not to have been surpassed in wild debauchery by what took place in the temples of Ashtaroth and Hathor. The corn beer was made by the virgins of the sun and was a noble offering. The first offering was made to the rising sun himself and carried into his temple by pipes. Then the Inca drank to his ancestors, to the mummies in whom the sun god had been incarnate, and lastly it was put at the disposal of the people. So either they're telling you that there were mummies in Peru.
You hear that?
The forest Indians of Central and South America also had their intoxicating drinks even before the discovery of America. These they made of Indian corn, cassava bread, the fruits of palms and bananas. Still, there were a great many tribes, especially in the southern part of South America, which drank only water and chewed the juicy stalks of plants. In Guyana, pieces of cassava are put into a vessel and boiling water poured over them. When it is cooled, women chew it and stir it until it reaches the consistence of a thick porridge. It is then put into a long trough made from the stem of a hollow tree and water added. When it is allowed to ferment, the ptyalin of the saliva contributing to this result. When fermentation takes place, it is strained through a reed sieve and bottled in gourds. The process is like that of preparing kava in Oceania, and the finished drink is called piawari. It is yellowish brown in color and tastes like sour beer. It contains sufficient quantity of alcohol to intoxicate, and the Indian who attends a piawari fest is pretty sure to get drunk. The ordinary drink of the villages is unfermented piawari. A good deal of ceremony attends the preparation of piawari, as is the case with kava in Oceania. Sugarcane wine and another intoxicating fluid from a mixture of sweet potatoes and molasses are made by these people. In the latter, fermentation is set up by the addition of chewed grains of maize, the latter acting as a yeast. The inhabitants of the mountain regions of Colombia and Ecuador make a drink from fermented water solutions of raw sugar, which they call guarapo. To this, they add the juice of a small aromatic citron, giving the mixture a flavor not unlike that of lemonade. It is also drunk before fermentation sets in. It is then called regular to distinguish it from the other, which is called bravo. A similar drink is made by chewing pieces of sugarcane and spitting them into a calabash and bottling the juice in a gourd, where it is allowed to ferment. The drink thus prepared is strongly alcoholic and intoxicating in small quantities. Though the great tribes of Central and Northern North America had the sap of the sugar maple, birch, and sugar pine, and though they made quantities of sugar and were fond of it, they do not seem to have stumbled upon the process of fermentation. Not because they disliked alcohol, surely, for the Indian has always suffered great demoralization when he permitted his appetite to be gratified with the white man's intoxicants. Neither is there any evidence that the tribes inhabiting the cold regions of the southern part of South America have any alcoholic liqueurs. Nearly all the Negro tribes made an intoxicating drink of some kind, be it beer made from millet or Indian corn being the most common. They not only made the beverages but drank them to excess.
Professor.
Could you possibly rewind and come again?
Nearly all the Negro tribes made an intoxicating drink of some kind, beer made from millet or Indian corn being the most common.
Straight like that. Wow. Long before European conquest. Oh, wow. The plot thickens. Professor.
They not only made the beverages but drank them to excess. Drunkenness among them was quite general, according to Wisman, who advised travelers who intended to transact business with them to see them in the morning before the great daily drunk began. Beer of this kind was made both north and south of the equator, while in the equatorial regions there was an abundance of palm and banana wine. The Hottentots were an exception and had no native alcoholic drink. The Hottentots were the people of South Africa. I think they're the people you would call the Sand people. Before they were called that, they were referred to as Hottentots, I think. But yeah, this book, once again, just as a little reminder, this is Shall We Drink? A Physician's Study of the Alcohol Question. And this is by Dr. John Madden.
Professor, this just gets better and better. I mean, you know, we're brewing Alks in the Americas way before European invasion. Enough said. And with that being said as well, in order for you to, you know, do fermentation process, that denotes a high thinking mind. And high civilization as well. But anyway, Professor.
Yeah, shout out to the chat. Shout out to Maga, peace to you.
Big ups, salute.
Shout out to Chief Inca, I just see you coming now. What's good?
Mr. Inca, big ups, salute.
Shout out to El Borio.
Big ups. Salute.
And shout out to Stephen. Peace to you.
Big ups. Salute.
Yeah, man. All right. So what we'll do, we will go for a music break, and then we'll come back, and then we'll do a little bit more stuff.
Okay, and on that note, as we slide to the bar for some refreshments, and by the orders of Professor Hot Stepper, it's a double chili pepper. And Professor, don't forget, gotta hand out some wrenches. Listen.
You are a big girl now, surely, and I'm a big man now. So we don't have to hide in the dark anymore. We can go right into the park under the light, 'cause we are in love, surely. Say we are in love, you and I. Once we used to hide in the dark, because you and I were so very young. But now we don't have to hide anymore, darling, 'cause you are a big girl now, surely, and I'm a big man now. Whoa, Once we used to hide in the dark, because you and I were so very young. But now we don't have to hide anymore, darling, 'cause you are a big girl now, surely, and I'm a big man now. So we don't have to hide in the dark anymore. We can go right into the park under the light. Yes, 'cause we are in love, surely. Say we are in love, long, long time. We are in love.
Once again, the sounds of Mr. Larry Marshall, track entitled Shirley, lifted from his album entitled I Admire You, circa 1975. And that comes courtesy of Marshall Records, Messiah Records, Java Records, and Java Records Entertainment. And is available at all good music retailers and stockists. Make sure you go cop it. Oh my days. What?
You got to do this new dance. Hope you are ready. You got to do it just like Uncle Freddy. If you don't know.
Could you possibly rewind and come again?
Hey yo, and this a big people's thing, you know. All big people living on the dance. So this one you get on the dance floor and you're just a 1 foot, 2 foot. Hey yo, listen. Shout out to the big people them. Your time this. What?
Better get ready. Come to rock steady. You got to do this new dance.
somebody says ra.
Hey, listen, I just got a text here. Mama Gambler's actually listening to the show. She's like, son, pull up now and come again that one there, you know. Mama Gambler!
Better get ready, come to rock steady. You got to do this new dance, hope you are ready. You got to do it just like Uncle Freddie. If you don't know, just shake your head, rock your body line, shake your shoulders, everything in time and see. Oh, 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 oh.
Shout out to Mama Gambler. Love ya.
Better get ready, just to do rock steady. Yeah, you got to do this new dance, just like Freddie. You got to do it just like Uncle Freddie. If you don't know, shake your head, rock your body now, shake your shoulders, everything in time and see. Oh, 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 oh. Know you're ready. Let's do rock steady. Yeah. You got to do this new dance. Know that you're ready. You got to do it just like Uncle Freddie. Know that you know it. Shake your head, rock your body now. Shake your shoulders, everything is fine now. See. Oh, 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 oh.
Salute. Just at my post. Once again, sounds of the late great Mr. Alton Ellis. His smash hit entitled Rock Steady. Lifted from his album entitled Still in Love, circa 1977. And that comes courtesy of Horse Records, Clintones Records, and Trojan Records. And is available at all good music retailers and stockists. Make sure you go cop it. Shout out to Mama Gambler once again. I know you like them one there. Without further ado, Professor Hotspur, back to you.
Peace, what's good? Shout out to the chat. Shout out to everybody out there right about now. Peace to the droid. Peace to Mother Gambler. Yeah, salute.
Yeah, man.
Okay, so let's continue. Pick up where we left off. So I'm going to switch to PDF that I've got here. 1 second. Right, screen share. Yeah. Okay, so what I've got here is a Divine Brew, Alcohol in Haitian Voodoo, and Yucatec Maya Ritual by Jeffrey Vandala. So this is what we're moving on to next. Should probably make that a bit bigger. Whoa. Yeah, like that. All right, so wait, I'll start off here, the picture. So we got figure 1 in rural Haiti, and Per, a Hungan, which is a Haitian voodoo ritual leader, has the author a medicinal bottle of Claren, raw sugarcane liquor, steeped in botanicals. That's what you're seeing there.
I'll say this for the record, inside joke for ICCC, you know who's to Uncle Ray Ray ain't got nothing on that. Side note, Professor.
Archaeological and anthropological research shows that many human societies across time and space have used alcohol in religious and ritual contexts. There are often customs and ethics that govern how alcohol is produced, the ingredients used, and when, how, and by whom it may be consumed. Growing up in the United States as part of a mildly religious Christian family, I was familiar with ritual alcohol used primarily in the practice of communion wine, thought to be transubstantiated into divine blood. The amount each participant was expected to drink was small, amounted to no more than a shot's worth, and thus participants did not become intoxicated, though the priest was expected to consume all the alcohol that remained at the end of the ceremony. During my ethnographic fieldwork in rural Yucatan and Haiti, however, I participated in spiritual rituals that involved liberal consumption of local liquors in an effort to produce altered states of consciousness among specific participants. As with communion, the alcohol used was deeply connected to spiritual practices. The type of local alcohol used in both sites was potent and had important guidelines governing how it should be used and consumed by participants. Below, I examined my experiences with the Yucatec Maya and their drink Bauchi, and rural Haitians and their drink Claren, using ethnographic data from EHRAF World Cultures to add context. So we start off with Bauchi. During my first travels to the Yucatan, I was unaware that the local brew Bauchi had a highly symbolic role in local Maya ritual practices. I was first offered Bauchi during a ritual event called a Chak Chake. This agriculturally important ceremony is used to pray to deities for rain. During this event, shamans craft a table setting that is divided into 4 quadrants at 2 levels. This division into 4 planes with upper and underworld symbolically represents the Maya view of the cosmos. During the Chak Chake I attended, a shaman laid out offerings of masa, corn flour, in gourd bowls. A visually striking array of pink hibiscus flowers had been collected and were arranged beautifully around the table. At each of the table's 4 corners, the shaman placed a vintage glass bottle that had no label. It was filled with a golden-colored liquid. This liquid was Bauchi, a sweet honey-based drink that had ties at least back to the ancient Maya. So the Chake ceremony lasted all day. Local women painstakingly prepared a variety of meals, while men prepared a special form of masa, and the food was then combined into a feast that women and men consumed separately. Once the feast was complete, the shaman turned to the Bauchi, which rested on the table setting. It was now late afternoon, and the shaman explained to me that he was offering Bauchi to Jesus above, to the 4 brothers at the corners of the earth, and to a jaguar that sat in the middle of the earth. He offered Bauchi to these important figures by splashing a generous amount of liquid onto the earth around the table. The shaman then drank roughly a bottle of Bauchi while he recited a complex series of prayers, shifting his attention upwards and then downwards towards the table. After later research and in reflecting on conversations I had with the shaman and participants, it became clear that the Chak Chake and the ritual Bauchi played a vital role in tying participants to their ancestors, and the ritual had deep historical roots. So in figure 3 that you see there, that's a ceremonial pot that contained Bauchi, and that was on display at the Casa no Bolum in San Cristobal de las Casas, which is in Chiapas, Mexico. So after the shaman drank most of a bottle of Bauchi, an assistant passed the remains of his bottle and the other still full bottles to the oldest men first, and then the younger men. Women who were not offered Bauchi stood at a distance observing the ceremony. Perhaps because I was a special guest, the shaman also provided me and my colleague with a full bottle of Bauchi. The Bauchi was sweet and tasted mainly of honey. Its flavor was comparable to some of the European meads that I had sampled in specialty bars in the United States. We drank the bottle with the other men, and a jovial, mellow state of drunkenness pervaded the group. In Duan Metzger's 1964 work, he investigates how ceremonial drinks like Baochi are regulated in Maya society and reflect social order. In the Maya highlands, the distribution of the alcohol over the course of the ritual symbolically ranks groups as well as individuals within these groups. The isolotable drinking act encodes one's own rank relative to all other persons present, or alternatively, each person's rank relative to every other. At the Chachake, I described Bauchi was certainly distributed according to age, but the men who contributed the most matter to the ritual also drank earlier. To better contextualize the tradition of drinking Bauchi, I turned to the EHRAF, World Cultures Collection on Yucatec Maya. Mary Elmendorf describes the importance of Bauchi as well as other alcoholic beverages in indigenous Yucatec ceremonies. She notes the exchange value of Bauchi, describing how shamans are paid for their services as medicinal practitioners with alcohol, such as in the Chak ritual and others. As the spiritual leaders, shamans also perform important organizing functions in the context of the ritual and often are in charge of distributing the alcohol and overseeing how and by whom it is consumed. Similar to my own observations among the Maya, as well as Catholic communion rituals, Elmendorf states that the shaman is expected to drink the most. Elmendorf explains that as the communal glass passes through the group, some people refuse it while others imbibe more freely, but it is the shaman who seems to be expected to reach a high state of intoxication as he calls on the saints and looks into his azatan, or magic stone. This tradition of significant drinking during spiritual rituals connects the contemporary Maya traditions to the ancient Maya. Noting that alcohol consumption during rituals was an important spiritual practice for the Maya during the early colonial period when pre-Hispanic rituals were still dominant. Robert Schauer argues that the drunkenness reported by the Spanish was undoubtedly related to an aspect of Maya ritual not well described in the ethnohistorical documents, divination, or ritual acts designed to communicate directly with supernatural powers. The recipe for Bauchi is thought to be linked to the ancient Maya drink. It is produced from the bark of the Bauchi tree. The bark is harvested, left in the sun to dry for 4 days, and cooked in 3 buckets of water. 5 to 6 kilograms of honey are added alongside anise and cinnamon. After foam appears, the Bauchi has fermented and is ready. Because the drink and its recipe are deeply traditional with links to the ancestry of the Maya, Bauchi is regarded as a symbolically powerful beverage that is also spiritually charged with local and ancestral energies. The traditional connections that Bauchi represents is part of the reason it is used in so many Maya ceremonies. Ethnographer Ellen Kint, studying the Yucatec Maya, found that this was the case. One of her informants provided details about a ceremony for protecting places called the Lodkatali ceremony. The local Maya man says that protection results from doing the following actions to pray to forest spirits called aluks. It will protect us, we will petition the spirits, walk around the property 9 times, drink 13 bowls of Bauchi wine and pray to the aluks. The Balam wind spirits will be called to protect us. We will prepare nahua, the ritual bread, and slaughter a chicken. We will walk to the 4 corners, and there we will position the crosses, the pieces of the tankashi wood, a little rum, and some pieces of the black obsidian to protect us. We will offer the nahua and the Bauchi to the aluks. And now we get to Claren. In Haiti, I also experienced alcohol in a ritual context. Here, like among the Maya, participants often consume more than a sip, instead drinking moderate amounts in the course of ritual ceremonies such as divinations and festivals. Most of the rituals that I experienced were divination events that took place in small voodoo temples. While collaborating with ethnographer Alyssa Jordan, I built up a rapport with the local men practicing voodoo divination rituals. The leaders of such events, locally known as Hungans, often invited me to participate and observe in these ceremonies. After attending 2 or 3 of such ceremonies, I discovered that I, like other well-off participants, was informally expected to contribute to the festivities by bringing an offering to consume with others, such as a bit of the local liquor claren or raw rum. To obtain claren, I had to buy it from local women or hungans, who in turn had purchased it from others, often in the mountainside where some families were involved in household production. In 1951, Alfred Moutron and colleagues noted that claren was purchased from saleswomen. This is in stark contrast to my experiences in the Yucatec ritual, where women did not participate in the consumption, storage, or distribution of bauchi. So figure 4, we've got a Haitian food altar filled with a variety of liqueurs created during a festival for the Gued spirits. At ritual gatherings in Haiti, claren was freely passed among all attendants, often starting with the hungan. Like Yucatec rituals and Catholic communion feasts, the leader of the ritual, hungans in this case, was often expected to imbibe the most. The claren I tasted in Haiti was a clear, spicy, and potent beverage. Depending on the specific ritual being conducted, it could be mixed with a variety of botanicals, such as when newly purchased claren was added to emptied bottles that contained peppers, flowers, twigs, fruits, bones, or spices. Due to its high potency, 90 proof, it is usually consumed in small sips and is also used medicinally. Inhaling the fumes helps to decongest sinuses, gargling reduces the effects of sore throats, and applying it to knees and backs helps alleviate aching muscles. Alfred Matral and colleagues note that claren is the standard drink chosen for ritual ceremonies. At rituals in Haiti, I would first present the claren I purchased to the hungan, or the spirit possessing the hungan, who would take a swig and expect that I also take a few drinks with him and the other participants. When I came early to rituals, this frequently meant that the hungan, other critical participants, and I had consumed a moderate amount of alcohol before the event began. After all participants had arrived, we would take seats around the hungan. When we were seated, he would initiate a series of prayers spoken rapidly or otherwise sing prayers which the participants repeated. Between key prayers to the Lua, ancestral spirit entities, God, Bondi, and Catholic saints, Le Seigneur, the hungan would take a gulp of claren and give it to me to drink and to pass along to other participants. This meant that by the end of a given ritual event, which could last roughly 3 to 4 hours, everyone participating would have imbibed a fair amount, or at least feigned drinking it out of politeness. At some point, often halfway through the ceremony, after a series of what seemed like countless prayers and rounds of claren, the hungan would enter into a trance state called possession in English, or being ridden, monte, in Creole. His eyes would glaze over, his bodily movements would shift in style, dramatically, and his voice would shift its tenor depending on the specific awa that was present. At this point, the hungan was possessed or being rode by a Iwa spirit. Harold Corlander witnessed a possession during which claren fueled a similarly dramatic transformation in a hungan. He shook his ason, ritual rattle, rhythmically and spoke language to Pingamaza, a Iwa. Suddenly, Pingamaza entered the hungan's head. The hungan became violent. He jerked this way and that, making strange noises in his throat. He seized a machete from the altar, waved it around, and struck the flat of it against his head. He continued for a while to beat his head fiercely with the machete. Gradually, he became quiet. His assistants placed Pinga's red jacket on him. Now he spoke in the tired voice of an old man. He complained that he was hungry, that he had not eaten for a long while. His assistant handed him a razor blade. He placed it in his mouth, chewed it up, and swallowed it, washing it down with more of the white liquid in the bottle.
What? Wow.
The hungan frequently used alcohol and chanted prayer to reach a state of possession during divination rituals, wherein the visiting spirit was thought to be able to see the future or observe events in distant places. Once the spirit possessed the hungan, usually it would ask for claren. If there was none left, one or more participants would contribute funds to purchase more claret for the ceremony, often sending a youth to purchase it from a merchant woman. After receiving the new claret, the possessed Hungan would drink large quantities of liquor, frequently showing little effect from it. At this point, the possessed Hungan would make pronouncements about the future, the past, and present. These cryptic prognostications were the site of much discussion by the attendees. Drinking claret during ritual events like these is an important tradition in Haitian voodoo practice. In 1951, Metral et al. Noted that heavy drinking was most common when men gathered together in labor teams or in rara festivals, carnival dances, or funerals. As many Haitians know, claret has never been commercially bottled to a significant degree. Refined privately from Haiti's abundant sugarcane crops, it is produced and distributed by artisans in shacks all around the country. Rather than being distributed across the country like other goods, it is produced and consumed during local ritual events and often does not travel far, perhaps because it is a local brew. It steadfastly remains a central part of many Haitian voodoo rituals. So, in conclusion, you've got another picture there. So this is figure 5. So this is Ampere, a Hungan prepares a table setting for the Iwa, which is the spirit entities of Haitian voodoo, to heal a troubled patient. The setting features claret rebottled in a ceremonial ritual bottle further left, and 2 commercial rum bottles centered for use during the healing. In Haitian voodoo, alcohol is not only consumed orally but also sprayed into the air during certain rituals, known as fula, and applied medicinally in a variety of tinctures, salves, and remedies. Okay, so last part. When considering the cultural importance of alcohol and its ritual usage, HRAF's extensive database helped me contextualize these ethnographic experiences with both ethnographic data and theories regarding the social implications of alcohol use. More specifically, ethnographic data in EHRAF world cultures demonstrate that alcohol used during rituals can be both highly structured and high in quantity. In both the Yucatan and Haiti, alcohol use shapes social relationships while also providing important ties to the past, in the case of Haiti, through the literal presence of the ancestors in the body of the Hungan. Further research with EHRAF could help researchers determine the correlates of alcohol use in ritual, providing answers to questions such as, is alcohol use related to possession cross-culturally? How does alcohol use in ritual correlate to key types of religious organization or social order? How have colonial governments historically shaped traditional alcohol uses? Answers to these questions could help us understand the important nexus of history, religion, tradition, and social relations that alcohol has shaped across time and space. And once again, as a reminder, this is a divine brew alcohol in Haitian voodoo and Yucatec Maya ritual, and that was by Jeffrey Vidala. Okay, all right, people. So that is your part 1. Shout out to 6-4.
Big ups, salute.
And shout out to Haru.
Big ups, salute.
And peace to Jeff.
Big ups, salute.
Yeah. So that will be part 1. That'll be part 1 for today. So in part 2, I've got like a few other small bits and pieces that I can go over, and then that will be episode 27 done. So shout out to everybody that came out today. Much appreciation as always. Hope you guys enjoyed that, and then we'll come back again and we'll conclude with part 2 for this. So once again, until the next time, enjoy the rest of your day with whatever it is that you do, and I'm sure we'll do this again soon.
Yes, Professor. Once again, you went digging in the crates. Big ups. And yes, we have come to that time. It's the end of our Arawak chat for today, but make sure you tune in next week for part 2. You get me? And as we slide the bar for some refreshments, and by the orders of Professor Hot Stepper, it's a triple chili pepper. Listen.
It's wrong to keep me hanging on. Yeah, can't you see it's wrong? Ooh, to keep me hanging on. Yeah, you're lying, you're lying. Won't you stop your lying now? I went home and dried my eyes. The tears that I cried could not be disguised. No, I wondered if this was real. The pain in my heart, the times I tried. Can't you see it's wrong? It's wrong to keep me hanging on. Yeah, can't you see it's wrong? Ooh, to keep me hanging on. Yeah, you're lying, you're lying. Won't you stop your lying now? Ooh, stop your lying now. Ooh, stop your lying now. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Can't you see it's wrong? It's wrong to keep me hanging on. Yeah, can't you see it's wrong? Ooh, to keep me hanging on. Yeah, you're lying, you're lying. Won't you stop your lying now? Ooh, now. Ooh, stop your lying now. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Ooh.
Yes, Rainstorm, where you there? Haha. Tune. Once again, the sounds of Miss Sandra Cross. Track entitled You're Lying. Lifted from her album entitled Country Life. Circa 1985-86, roughly around that time. and that comes courtesy of Arawak Sounds Limited and Octave Lab Records, and is available at all good music retailers and stockists. Make sure you go cop it. Big classic tune.
System ready to receive input.
Left channel, right channel, left channel, right channel, in stereo sound.
All right. Woo!
Not many people can cha-cha-cha. Not everybody can do the whistle, but everybody can do the ska. It's a new dance you can't resist.
Time to shake a leg.
Not many people can cha-cha-cha. Not everybody can do the whistle, but everybody can do the ska. It's a new dance you can't resist. Ska, ska, ska. Jamaican ska. Now everybody can do the ska. It's a new dance that goes like this. Now bow your heads, swing your arms, shake your hips. Now do a dip. Ska, ska, ska. Jamaica ska. Ska, ska, ska.
Yes, Mr. Inca.
Do the ska.
What?
Not many people can cha-cha-cha. Not everybody can do the twist, but everybody can do the ska. It's a new dance you can't resist. Ska, ska, ska. Jamaican ska. Ska, ska, ska. Jamaican ska. Stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down, stand up.
Easy now. Once again, you listen to the sounds of Mr. Byron Lee and the Dragonaires. Track entitled Jamaica Ska. Lifted from their album entitled Byron Lee and the Dragonaires Plays Jamaican Ska, circa 1964. And that comes courtesy of Kentone Records and is available at all good music retailers and stockists. Make sure you go cop it. Classic gems.
I'm dreaming of a new Jamaica, a land of peace and love.
Oh!
I'm dreaming of a new Jamaica, a land of peace and love. Some say they cannot see no hope, that's why they keep it slow. I know there's hope somewhere, that's why I wrote this song. So let me tell you all who believe in love, as I sing this song with me. All who believe in love, as I sing this song with me. Only singing la 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 la. I mean I know
rock all around. And everybody come and rock over town. When I hear this song, them a rock over. And if they're feeling hungry, them a rock over. And if they're thirsty still, them a rock all around. And everybody come and rock over town. Them a rock, 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 them a rock over. I know we are in this town by working and thinking. But make we show the world no working hand in hand. So let me tell you all.
If you want to hear that tune again, somebody say ra 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 ra.
Why, Professor, say one more time.
A land of peace and love. Some say they cannot see no hope. That's why they leave this now. I know there's hope somewhere. That's why I wrote this song. So let me tell you all who believe in love. I say go sing this song with me. All who believe in love. I say go sing this song with me. All they singing la 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 la. I mean I know la 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 la. My children all are gone and leaving me behind. I know there is hope somewhere. That's why I wrote this song. So let me tell you all who believe in love. I say go sing this song. Everybody say all who believe in love. I say go sing this song. Me now they singing la 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 la. I mean I know la 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 la. And everybody gonna rock over town. And everybody come and rock all around. And everybody come and rock over town. And I hear this song come and rock all around. And everybody come and rock over town. And everybody come and rock all around. And everybody come and rock over town. And I hear this song come and rock over. And if they're feeling hungry, them a rock over. And if they're thirsty still, them a rock all around. And everybody come and rock over town. Them a rock, 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 them a rock over. I know we are in this town by working and thinking. But make we show the world no working hand in hand. So let me tell you all who believe in love. I say go sing this song. Everybody say all who believe in love. I say go sing this song with me. To all my friends in town, come sing this song with me. So that the world can see love working hand in hand. So let me tell you all who believe in love. I say go sing this song. Everybody say all who believe in love. I say go sing this song with me. Now they singing la 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 la. And everybody say la 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 la. One more time la 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 la. And if you love that la 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 la. And everybody gonna rock over town. Everybody gonna rock all around. And everybody come and rock over town. When I hear this song, come and rock over. I make me sing a little bit, come and rock over. Billy Bob, everybody come and rock all around. And everybody come and rock over town. Come and rock.
Once again, sounds of Mr. Stanley and the Turbines. Track entitled New Jamaica, in brackets, Come Sing With Me. Lifted from the compilation album entitled Soldiering, Reggae's Greatest Hits, circa 1993. And that comes courtesy of Heartbeat Records and is available at all good music retailers and stockists. Make sure you go cop it. Classic gems. And that's it for today. So, Origines, Mesoamericans, forward! We out! Peace.